All right, let's dive into the world of the Zodiac.
Sound exciting.
You sent over some really fascinating articles about the 12 signs, and how they connect to Jungian archetypes. It's pretty complex stuff, but we're going to try to break it all down today.
Awesome.
We're not just going to do your typical, horoscope reading here. We're looking at the Zodiac as like a guide for self-discovery.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll be kind of looking at it more from that spiritual angle, seeing it as a tool to understand ourselves and others, on a deeper level. Not so much focused on strict predictions and things.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
So we're going to try to uncover the core of each sign, strengths, weaknesses. You mentioned archetypes earlier, and we're going to touch upon those too.
Yeah, definitely.
It's going to be like a cosmic personality test.
I love that.
And to help guide us through this cosmic journey, we have our expert.
Oh, thank you.
I'm super excited to get your insights on this.
Happy to be here. It's it's always interesting to see how these ancient symbols still have so much to offer us, even in modern times.
Absolutely. So, okay, let's unpack all this. So the Zodiac's traditionally divided into the 4 elements. You've got fire, earth, air, and water. And they seem to play a big role in kind of shaping the personality of each sign, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, these elements, they kind of provide that fundamental framework for understanding how each sign interacts with, the world around them,
Okay.
Like you take fire signs, they're known for their passion and their drive, whereas earth signs tend to be more grounded, more practical. Air signs, communication, intellectual pursuits.
Oh.
And then water signs, they're all about emotions and intuition.
So it's almost like these elements create a blueprint for each sign and how they approach.
Yeah, like a basic,
a
basic kind of map.
And what's so cool here is this blueprint. It isn't just like personality traits. It seems to influence how each sign handles challenges, how they express their creativity, even how they deal with relationships.
Yeah, it's true. When you understand, the elemental influences, it can give you a really good perspective on why we behave the way we do, why people around us behave the way they do.
Yeah.
It's like having, that decoder ring for human behavior.
I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's dive into some specific signs here. Let's start with Aries.
Okay.
The first sign of the Zodiac, right?
Yes.
Fire sign, ruled by Mars.
Yeah.
Planet of action, assertion.
Yes, and that Martian energy, it's very strong in Aries.
Okay.
They're known for their boldness, competitive spirit, and just that unwavering drive to be number one,
Right.
Be the first in everything.
So like the trailblazers, the pioneers, the ones who just fearlessly charge into any new experience.
Exactly. They're not afraid to kind of push the boundaries,
But all that fiery energy can also lead to some challenges.
Oh, for sure.
It's not always easy being a trailblazer.
Yeah.
Always pushing against the status quo.
No. And I think a key lesson for any Aries is learning how to, take all that fiery energy and channel it productively.
Yeah.
Because that impulsiveness, it can lead to sometimes some hasty decisions or, conflicts with other people.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's really helpful for them to just pause, take a breath, see the bigger picture before jumping into action.
That makes a lot of sense.
Nah.
So their boldness is definitely a strength, but learning to temper it with some patience, some strategic thinking, that's key.
It is, yeah.
Listener, does this resonate with you at all? Have you ever noticed this dynamic playing out in your own life? Or maybe even in someone you know?
It's definitely a dynamic that can be, both exhilarating and challenging, for sure.
Okay, so next on our little cosmic journey here, we have Taurus, Earth sign, ruled by Venus, the planet of, love, beauty, pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
If Aries is all about action, Taurus seems to be about savoring life's little pleasures.
Precisely. Taurians are very connected to the physical world.
Okay.
They appreciate the finer things in life, good food, beautiful surroundings. They really enjoy those tactile experiences.
Yeah.
And they're also incredibly loyal, dependable, grounded individuals who value stability and security.
But I imagine that grounded nature could also manifest as stubbornness sometimes.
Oh, interesting.
Try telling a Taurus they're wrong about something. You might be in for a long debate.
Well, that fixed nature that they have that comes from that earth element, it can definitely make them a little bit resistant to change. They like things predictable, they like them reliable,
Right.
and they can be pretty set in their ways.
Yeah. So while their steadfastness is a strength, like, in a lot of ways, learning to be a bit more flexible,
Yeah.
and adapt to new situations. That might be, like, a valuable lesson for Taurus.
Yeah, I think so.
It's about finding that balance between staying true to their values,
Yeah,
but also being open to new perspectives.
absolutely. That's a theme that we see with all the signs, actually.
Yeah.
Finding that balance between, our strengths and the areas where we might need to grow a little.
Okay.
Oh.
So let's move on to Gemini then.
All right.
Air sign, ruled by Mercury, the planet of communication and intellect. Always thinking, always talking, always, like, flitting from one idea to next. Am I right?
You are spot on. Geminis are like the ultimate communicators of the zodiac.
Okay.
They're curious, witty, They have this knack for connecting with just about anyone from all walks of life.
Yeah.
They just thrive on mental stimulation.
Yeah.
Always up for a good conversation or even a debate,
Yeah. But I bet that quick mind also, like, leads to some indecision, right?
Well,
With so many ideas and possibilities, it's got to be hard to, like, commit to just one path.
that is the paradox of Gemini, for sure. Their adaptability, that can be a real strength for them. It allows them to, navigate all sorts of social situations with ease.
Yeah.
But, it can also make them appear scattered or inconsistent,
Right.
sometimes even to themselves.
It's so interesting, that duality.
Yeah.
It makes you think about how our greatest strengths can sometimes also be our biggest challenges.
Absolutely.
It's all about finding that balance.
Your self-awareness is so, so important. Yeah.
All right, listener, we're about to dive into the realm of the water signs, starting with Cancer, ruled by the moon, the planet of emotions and intuition. What's so fascinating here is that Cancers are known for being very sensitive, and having these nurturing qualities.
Yes, they are the nurturers of the zodiac. They're deeply intuitive, very compassionate, and they really prioritize that emotional connection above all else. Family, close friends, that's their world. And they create this sense of, like, home and belonging wherever they go.
I can see how that deep sensitivity could also make them prone to mood swings, right? It's like the ebb and flow of the tides.
Yeah, it is. They feel everything very deeply, and their emotions can be quite intense. So it's really important for them to have that safe space, a supportive environment where they can, process all those feelings without judgment.
So while their empathy and their nurturing qualities are strengths, learning to establish, like, some healthy boundaries and prioritizing their own self-care,
Absolutely,
that seems pretty crucial.
It's so important for their well-being. Yeah, it's about finding that balance between, caring for others and honoring their own needs.
Okay, so next up we have Scorpio, another water sign.
All right.
But this was ruled by Pluto, the planet of transformation, death, rebirth, and co-ruled by Mars, which we saw with Aries. So this seems like where things get a little bit more, like, intense.
Scorpio is definitely known for its intensity and its complexity.
Okay.
They're passionate, perceptive. They have this, like, magnetic presence that just draws people in. They're also incredibly resourceful and resilient.
Okay.
And they're not afraid to delve into those, like, mysteries of life,
So I can see how that Martian influence would add, like, a layer of assertiveness, of drive to their already very powerful emotional nature.
Yeah, it adds that extra fire, yeah.
And with Pluto as their ruler,
Yeah.
they're probably not afraid to, like, face their own shadow side.
You're right. Scorpio is a sign that really embraces transformation. They're constantly evolving, shedding old skin, emerging stronger, wiser from life's challenges. But, that journey of transformation, it can be pretty tumultuous at times.
So it sounds like Scorpio is all about diving deep, embracing the light, embracing the shadow, and ultimately emerging, like, a more empowered version of themselves.
Yeah, it's a powerful journey.
Well, listener, do you know any Scorpios?
Yeah, what do you think?
What stands out to you about their personality?
They definitely, they leave a mark, don't they?
Okay, now let's shift gears a little bit. Let's explore Sagittarius.
Well, okay.
The adventurous archer of the Zodiac. They're a fire sign, ruled by Jupiter. The planet of expansion, optimism, good fortune. Seems like they're all about freedom, exploration, seeking truth.
You got it. Sagittarians are the free spirits of the zodiac. They're curious, they're optimistic, they have this, like, insatiable thirst for knowledge and adventure.
Okay.
They love to travel, learn new things, and just expand their horizons in every way possible.
But with all that wanderlust, I imagine it might be hard for them to settle down
Oh, yeah, for sure.
or commit to just one thing,
It
right?
can be.
'Cause they always seem to have their sights set on the next adventure.
Well, that's the Sagittarius paradox,
Yeah.
right? While they while they crave freedom, they crave exploration, they also yearn for meaning, for purpose.
Right.
So finding that balance between, venturing out into the world and establishing a sense of grounding
Mm-hmm.
that can be a key theme in their lives.
It's like they're always searching for a higher truth,
Yeah.
like a guiding principle that gives their adventures meaning.
Exactly. And for a lot of Sagittarians, that search often takes them, beyond those physical boundaries and into the realm of like philosophy, spirituality, that search for meaning.
Okay, let's move on to Capricorn.
All right.
Earth sign, ruled by Saturn.
Yeah.
The planet of discipline, structure, responsibility. If Sagittarius is the free-spirited adventurer, Capricorn seems to be more about, like, pragmatism
Yeah.
and achieving concrete results.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Capricorns are like the builders of the Zodiac.
Yeah.
They're ambitious, they're hardworking, and they have a strong sense of duty and responsibility.
Yeah.
They value tradition, structure, and they really strive to create a solid foundation, for themselves and for their loved ones.
I can see how that Saturnian influence could also make them, like, prone to seriousness, maybe even a bit of pessimism at times, right?
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
It's like they might focus so much on achieving their goals that they forget to, like, actually enjoy the journey along the way.
That's a good point. Capricorns can be pretty hard on themselves.
Yeah.
And they can struggle to let loose, embrace spontaneity.
Right.
So, yeah, sometimes they just need to remind themselves that, it's okay to celebrate those accomplishments and just enjoy the fruits of their labor.
So it's about finding that balance between, like, striving for excellence, but also allowing themselves to, like, experience joy and lightness along the way.
Exactly.
What do you think, listener? Does this resonate at all with your experience of this sign?
They often get this reputation for being all work and no play, but I think there's so much more to Capricorn than meets the eye.
Now we're entering some interesting territory with Aquarius,
Okay.
an air sign ruled by Uranus,
Yeah.
the planet of, like, innovation, revolution. But what's even more interesting is that they're also co-ruled by Saturn,
Oh, wow.
which we just saw with Capricorn.
Right.
So this blend of energies, it seems like it creates, like, a unique mix of rebellious idealism
Yeah.
and then that practical grounding.
Aquarius is definitely the unconventional one of the Zodiac.
Okay.
They're independent thinkers, they're humanitarians at heart, and they really do have this vision for a better future.
Yeah.
They challenge the status quo, embrace change, and they're often really drawn to social causes and progressive ideas.
But with all that focus on the collective good, do you think they ever struggle to, like, connect with individuals on a personal level? Like, their minds might be so focused on, like, solving the world's problems that they forget to nurture their own emotional needs.
That's a really interesting perspective.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, Aquarians can sometimes come across as detached or aloof.
Right.
Because they do tend to prioritize like that intellectual connection over expressing their emotions.
Yeah.
So yeah, learning to balance, their humanitarian ideals with the needs of their personal relationships, that can be a valuable lesson for them.
So it's about finding that sweet spot between, like, their revolutionary spirit and their ability to connect on, like, a heart-to-heart level.
It is, yeah. It's
Yeah.
about bridging that gap between their idealistic visions and the realities of human connection.
And finally, we arrive at Pisces,
Okay.
last sign of the zodiac,
Yeah.
water sign ruled by Neptune,
Uh-huh.
the planet of dreams, illusions, spirituality. I always get this sense of, like, ethereal beauty
Yeah.
and just deep compassion from Pisces.
Pisces is definitely the dreamer of the zodiac. They're intuitive, compassionate, and they're so deeply connected to their own emotions, the emotions of others. They're often really drawn to creative pursuits, like music, art, anything that allows them to tap into that rich inner world
Right.
that they have.
But I imagine all that sensitivity, all that empathy
Mm-hmm.
could sometimes be a bit overwhelming.
Oh, for sure.
Like, they could just absorb the energy of the people around them like a sponge.
That's a very common challenge for Pisces. Learning to establish, healthy boundaries and protecting their own energy is essential for their well-being. And sometimes they need to remind themselves that, they can't save everyone.
Yeah.
and that it's okay to prioritize their own needs.
So while their empathy is a gift, learning
Yeah.
to manage it and channel it constructively, that's key.
It is.
What do you think, listener? Do you have any personal insights on Pisces?
Yeah, what draws you to this sign?
What do you see in them?
They often have a way of seeing the world through a different lens, which can be inspiring, but also challenging.
So we've just taken like this whirlwind tour through the 12 signs, their elemental influences. And it's been fascinating, really. But what's really interesting to me is how these signs connect to Jungian archetypes. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Jungian archetypes they're like these universal patterns of behavior and imagery that exist in like the collective unconscious.
Okay.
And they represent, these fundamental human motivations and experiences. So it's like each sign kind of embodies a specific archetype, adding this like whole other layer of depth to our understanding of them.
That sounds super complex. Can you give us like an example of how a sign might embody an archetype?
Yeah. Let's take Aries. We talked about them a little bit before. They align with that hero archetype, always ready to, face challenges head on, fight for what they believe in. But, that doesn't mean every single Aries is going to be like out there saving the world, literally.
Right.
It's more about understanding that core energy, right, of courage, initiative, and leadership that's inherent in their nature.
So it's not about fitting people into like neat little boxes.
Yeah.
It's more about recognizing these broader patterns at play.
Yeah.
And that's where things get really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Because then you can start to see these archetypes reflected in like mythology, in literature, in art, like in every aspect of human culture.
Exactly. And the beauty of this approach is that, it moves beyond those like simple astrological interpretations.
Right.
And it invites us to see the zodiac as this reflection of like the human experience as a whole.
This has been so insightful. I feel like we've only just scratched the surface of this topic.
We have. There's so much more to explore.
What are your initial thoughts on all this, listener?
Yeah, what's resonating with you the most? Yeah, it really is amazing how, you can use these archetypes to kind of see past those basic sun sign descriptions.
Yeah.
And get to those deeper motivations, behind human behavior.
Totally.
Yeah.
And it's not just about our sun sign, which is like what most people think of when they talk about astrology, right?
Yeah.
There's so much more to it.
Exactly. Each person's birth chart is like this unique snapshot of the sky at the exact moment they were born. And it maps out the positions of all the planets, not just the sun, in the 12 houses of the zodiac.
Okay.
And each planet represents different aspects of our personality and our life experiences.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit. You mentioned houses.
Yeah.
What role do those play? I feel like I've heard that term before, but I'm not exactly sure what it means.
So the houses are kind of like different areas of life, like career, relationships, finances, things like that. And each house is associated with specific themes and experiences.
Okay.
And so where a planet falls in your birth chart, like which house it's in, shows how its energy is going to be expressed in that area of your life.
So it's almost like the planets are the actors.
Yes.
And the houses are the stage on which they perform.
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
That makes so much sense. But how does this all relate back to the archetypes we were talking about before?
Okay, so let's imagine someone has their Venus, which is the planet of love and beauty, in the 10th house of career.
Okay.
This might suggest that they're drawn to a career that involves aesthetics or creativity, or that they find fulfillment through their work. It's like the archetype of the lover associated with Venus is being expressed through the domain of career, which is represented by that 10th house. Yeah.
Wow. That's really cool. It makes you realize how much depth there is to astrology beyond like just knowing your sun sign.
Absolutely.
It's like this whole cosmic tapestry with all these threads like interwoven to create this really unique picture.
It is, yeah. And understanding those deeper layers can offer so much insight into like our own individual journeys, like having a personalized map of our soul's potential.
Listener, have you ever had your birth chart read?
Yeah.
It can be pretty mind-blowing to see all those little intricate details and how they all come together to like shape your unique personality and life path.
And even without a full birth chart reading, just exploring those those archetypes associated with each sign
Yeah.
can be incredibly illuminating.
Totally agree. Like, we were talking about Aries being the hero archetype earlier, but it doesn't mean every single Aries is going to be, like, out there saving the world. You know?
Exactly.
It's more about understanding that core energy of courage, initiative,
Yeah.
a willingness to stand up for what they believe in.
Absolutely. And it's not just about like external actions. It's about recognizing these archetypes within ourselves.
Yeah.
So someone with, a strong Taurus influence,
Yeah.
even if they're not a Taurus sun sign, might really embody that caregiver archetype in certain areas of their life. Maybe they're always the one cooking for their friends,
Right.
offering a listening ear, creating that sense of comfort and stability for
Yeah.
those around them.
That makes total sense. It's like these archetypes are kind of like these different facets of our personality
Yeah, like different sides.
that can show up in different ways
Uh,
depending on, like, the situation.
Yeah, exactly. And as we grow and evolve, different archetypes might become more prominent in our lives. It's a very like dynamic, ever-changing
Right.
process.
I love that. Okay, so let's play with this a little bit. Let's say someone really identifies with the Jester archetype,
Okay.
which we connected to Gemini earlier.
Right.
But what if they're not actually a Gemini sun sign? What might that tell us about them?
Well, it could mean that they have a strong Mercury influence in their birth chart, even if their sun sign is something else.
Right.
Or, it could just mean that Jester archetype just really resonates with them on a soul level,
Yeah.
Maybe they have a natural gift for communication,
Right.
a playful energy, a desire to, bring joy and laughter to those around them.
So it's not about rigidly fitting people into boxes based on their sun sign.
No, not at all.
It's about understanding these broader patterns.
Yeah,
These archetypes at play.
absolutely.
And that's where things get really fascinating, I think. Right?
Yeah.
Because then you start to see how these archetypes show up in, like, mythology, in literature, in art, in all aspects of human culture.
Yes, exactly. It becomes this incredible journey of self-discovery,
Yeah.
but also a journey of understanding like the human experience as a whole.
So, listener, little thought experiment here. Think about the people in your life.
Yeah.
Can you see these archetypes playing out?
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe your best friend is like a total Sagittarius explorer, always planning the next adventure. Or your mom is like a classic Cancer mother, always there to nurture and support you.
Yeah, it can be really eye-opening to start viewing the people around us
Yeah.
through this lens. It helps us appreciate their unique strengths,
Yeah.
but also understand, their challenges with a little more compassion.
That is so true. And it also helps us to see how these different archetypes can kind of like complement each other.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like the hero might need the grounding influence of the caregiver, or the rebel might, benefit from the wisdom of the sage.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all about balance and recognizing that, each archetype has its own unique gifts to offer the world.
Okay, so we've talked about the elements, we've talked about the signs, we've talked about these archetypes. It's a lot to take in.
It is. Yeah.
But I think what I'm most curious about now is, like, how can we actually use this knowledge in our everyday lives? Like, what's the practical application here?
That's a great question. And honestly, the applications are pretty much endless. But I think one of the most valuable is as self-awareness.
Okay.
Astrology can really help us understand our own strengths and weaknesses, our patterns, our tendencies. It's like holding up a mirror to ourselves and saying, okay, this is who I am at my core.
And once you know who you are, you can start to make more conscious choices.
Yeah, exactly. So, for example, if you tend towards impulsiveness, maybe you're an Aries, or you have like a prominent Mars in your chart, you might want to take a little extra time to think things through before, making a big decision. Or if you're a highly sensitive person, maybe you're a Cancer, or you have a strong moon influence, you might really want to prioritize self-care, create boundaries to protect your energy.
So it's not just about gaining these insights, it's about actually using those insights to make, like, more aligned choices in your life.
Yes, exactly.
What else? Like, how else can this be applied?
Well, I think astrology can be incredibly helpful in understanding and navigating relationships. When we understand our own astrological makeup and that of, our partner, our friends, our family members, it can really help to create more empathy and compassion in those relationships.
So instead of getting, like, frustrated when your partner does that thing that they always do.
Yeah,
You
right.
can be like, that's just their inner, insert archetype here coming out to play.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that, we all have different ways of processing information,
Right.
expressing our emotions,
Yeah.
approaching the world. And sometimes those differences, that they can create friction if we don't understand where the other person is coming from.
That's such a game changer
It can be.
in relationships. What else? What other areas, like, where this knowledge could be beneficial?
I think astrology can also help us to identify and work through our own shadow sides.
Okay.
Each archetype has both positive and negative expressions.
Right.
And by understanding our own shadow tendencies, we can start to, integrate them
Yeah.
in a healthier way.
Can you give us an example of that?
Okay, so let's say you're a Leo and you have a tendency towards arrogance. Astrology can help you to recognize that pattern and
Okay.
understand where it's coming from. And, it's not about like beating yourself up for having those tendencies.
Right.
It's about bringing those shadow aspects into the light of consciousness so they're no longer controlling us from the unconscious.
So instead of like denying or suppressing those
Mhm.
shadow traits, we can actually learn to like work with them, maybe even transform them into strengths.
Precisely. And finally, I think astrology can be a really powerful tool for personal growth and transformation.
Okay.
By understanding the cycles and transits of the planets, we can gain insights into the opportunities and challenges that are, presenting themselves in our lives.
Okay. Can you explain that a little bit more? What do you mean by like cycles and transits?
Yeah, so the planets are constantly moving through the zodiac, right? And their positions relative to our birth chart can create certain, energies and themes in our lives. It's like they're sending us these like cosmic messages or nudges in a certain direction.
So it's almost like having a cosmic roadmap to help us navigate
Yeah, like our
the
soul's
whole journey.
Exactly.
That's pretty incredible.
It is. And by understanding, those planetary influences,
Yeah.
we can make more aligned choices and navigate those challenges with more grace and awareness.
This is blowing my mind.
I know, it's a lot, right?
I feel like we could talk about this forever.
Too.
But for now, listener, I
Yeah.
think we've given you enough to chew on. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, are you starting to see
Yeah.
how these astrological concepts can be applied
Yeah.
in your own life? It really is, yeah. It's a lot to ponder.
So we've only just scratched the surface here,
Yeah.
But hopefully this has given you like a taste of how much depth there really is to astrology and how it can be such a valuable tool
Yeah.
for self-discovery, personal growth.
It's a lot more than just, reading your daily horoscope.
Exactly. And listener, we encourage you to keep exploring.
Oh, yeah.
There are so many resources out there.
Yeah, for sure.
Books, websites, podcasts, you
Yeah.
know. You can even find astrologers who offer like personalized readings.
Yeah.
It's a lifelong journey of discovery.
Absolutely. And remember, astrology is not meant to be like this rigid system of rules or predictions,
Yeah.
It's more like a symbolic language, I think,
Yeah.
that invites us to explore like the deeper meaning and purpose behind our lives.
It's like a cosmic conversation starter, right?
Yeah, I love that.
Gives us this framework for understanding ourselves, the
Yeah.
world around us.
Yeah.
But ultimately, it's up to each of us to create our own meaning and write our own stories.
It's about empowering ourselves with this knowledge, but not letting it define us. I think that's really important.
So, listener, as
Right.
we wrap up this cosmic adventure, we want to leave you with one final thought. After hearing all of this, has your perspective on astrology shifted at all? Maybe you're curious to learn more about your own birth chart. Or maybe you're just starting to see the people in your life in a new light,
Yep.
recognizing those archetypes playing out in their personalities and interactions.
Yeah, I think it can really change how we see ourselves and others.
Absolutely.
So yeah, whatever your takeaways are, we hope that this deep dive has, sparked a sense of wonder and
Yeah.
inspired you to explore the universe within and all around you.
That's beautifully said.
Mhm.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the fascinating world of astrology.